Great Mr. Chen Yu, you were successfully elected as the leader of the human race last night. What do you want to say to the world? Chen Yu woke up in confusion, not even wearing any clothes. I'm not good, I just woke up. Reader Group 101-761-2638 VIP Group 419402072 Keywords of the novel. My identity is becoming more and more abnormal without pop-ups, my identity is becoming more and more abnormal. Download the complete set of TXT, my identity is becoming more and more abnormal. Latest chapters for reading. Chapter 1. The Strange World. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. The Strange World. Doctor, Network Management, Manager of Listed Company, Apprentice with Superpowers, KTV Top Princess. Sitting on the rooftop balcony, Chen Yu held a telescope and observed the continuous flow of people in the commercial street below. Each person's head is suspended with a line of text. In addition to doctors, internet administrators, and managers of listed companies, there are also titles such as hairdressers, security guards, office workers, and high school students, covering everything. Chen Yu knows that those appellation words represent the true identity of that person. The one who displays barber must be a barber. The one displaying security must be the security guard. Displaying the top princess of KTV must be, I should go get a contact information first, he said as he put down his telescope and lost in thought. But the thought only echoed for 3 seconds before giving up. Because at this point, there were already many male livestock gathered around the beautiful woman who was the KTV #1 princess, forming groups to demand WeChat or phone numbers. Obviously, everyone can see the text on each other's heads. Sigh. With a deep sigh, Chen Yu felt tired and got up. He left the balcony and lay on the messy bed, his eyes lost. It has been over half a year since his soul penetrated into this strange world, and he still finds it difficult to adapt to the environment. This place is so different from the earth. In addition to possessing an extraordinary group of supernatural beings, each human's head is also suspended with a row of titles representing their identity. Also known as tags. It is called title in folk. Most of these titles are presented in written form. For example, teachers, police officers, nurses, firefighters, football players, cartoonists for example. Music stars, 3 good citizens, the richest man in a certain county, database backend experts, and so on. It's like a curse. It's like a kind of rule. No one can escape. Including Chen Yu, the traveler. And people around the world have never found this strange phenomenon very strange. Instead, it is believed that it, like supernatural power, belongs to a part of human society. And it has evolved a set of social communication rules that are completely different from the birth world. No need for clichés. No need to inquire. There is no need to guess whether the other person's identity, profession, or ability is true or false. As long as you lift your eyes and scan the title on the other person's head, it is enough to make an accurate judgment. Just like a completely naked world between individuals, don't try to hide any secrets from each other. Low key. Unless wearing a hat every day and covering the floating text above your head. Otherwise, under the title of World's Richest Man, no matter how poor one is, no one will believe it. Accuracy, up to 99.99%, so, am I the percent 0.0001? Looking up at the written title above his head, Chen Yu remained expressionless. His title is actually Corpse. Reaching out and vigorously rubbing his cheeks, Chen Yu became even more tired. He is very certain that he did not die. So the title on his head was fake from beginning to end. When the soul first penetrated this body, the words on his head were bacteria. The second month is ants. The third month is better than garbage. The fourth month is dirty garbage. The 5th month, garbage. Then there is expired feces. Feces. Rotten meat. A foul-smelling corpse. Until this month's corpse every month changes. I don't care at all about his psychological feelings. No title is accurate. Resulting in him not daring to leave the house for a moment, afraid of being beaten as wolves by superhumans and police as soon as he left. Completely eliminated from human society. Fortunately there is still hope for everything. After Chen Yu's observation, he found that his monthly changes in titles were moving upwards. From the initial pathogens to the current corpses. Step by step, steady and steady, continuous progress, and fruitful results. Perhaps in a few more months, he will become a normal person. If he still has time, bang bang bang. The sudden knocking outside the door made Chen Yu tremble. He suddenly stood up and turned his head to look at the door, saying, "Who? Who?" Public Security Summer. A man's voice came from outside the door. "I called you this morning for identity verification." "I see. Just a moment, I'll change clothes." Taking a deep breath, Chen Yu resisted the urge to swear and walked into the bathroom. He turned on the faucet and washed his face hard, trying to make himself more conscious. Yes. He was reported due to staying indoors all year round and relying on delivery drivers for meals and littering. The school took almost a year off. Never show your head. And then I was reported by some unscrupulous dog. Defamation that he was doing pornographic live streaming in the room. Gone. Before reporting, at least you need to clarify Laozi's gender. Wiping away the water stains on his face, Chen Yu clenched his fists with a clattering sound. Different cultural populations have different social rules. In this world where everyone is labeled, the ways in which countries combat crime, maintain security, and stabilize society are naturally different from those of the Earth world. Because people's identities cannot be hidden, many criminals with malicious names on their heads can only hide and dare not see anyone. So once someone is invisible for a long time, they are easily listed as suspicious individuals and reported by neighbors, the public, or public security informants. Extremely unfriendly to the group of otaku men and women. Even if you give me another month's time. After walking out of the bathroom, Chen Yu looked up at the ceiling at a 45-degree angle and said, "Don't let me know who reported this to me." Bang bang. The knocking on the door rang again, amplified by 20 decibels. Chen Yu opened the door quickly. The police officer behind the door spoke coldly. Here we are." After regaining his senses, Chen Yu picked up the hat hanging by the wall and put it on his head, covering the words, "corpse." Then reach out and grab the handle of the anti-theft door. But he hesitated to twist it. As soon as he opens the door, his future life may not be certain. Chen Yu. "Police officer, I won't open the door." "You definitely don't agree, do you?" "Police officer. You can give it a try." With a sigh, Chen Yu honestly opened the door and welcomed the emperor. To welcome the police comrades into the room. The police officers who came to verify were 2 in total, 1 male and 1 female, both very young. The title above a person's head is police. Another title on top of the head is still police. The young male police officer, led by Chen Yu, immediately narrowed his eyes for half a second when he saw the hat on his head and gave a glance to his female colleague. "Police officer, sit down and I'll make some tea for you." Chen Yu rolled up his sleeves and walked towards the kitchen, opening the refrigerator. "What kind of tea do you want?" "I have iced black tea, green tea, and iced black tea." "Don't drink anything." The young male police officer took out his identification and opened it to show Chen Yu. With an indifferent expression, he stood in the center of the living room, opened the folder, held a pen, and asked while writing, "Let's start straight, cooperate with our work." "Cooperate, definitely cooperate." Chen Yu closed the refrigerator door and raised his hands. "Female police officer. Dot. Male police officer. There's no need to surrender. What's your name? Chen Yu. Chen Yu. Occupation. College students. Age. About 20. The male police officer paused his pen and looked up at Chen Yu. Chen Yu awkwardly said, I can't remember a bit. Bring your ID card. Okay. The male police officer handed in his ID card, took it, carefully examined it, wrote the information into the document, and then handed it back. Q, we have received a report that you have been staying in your room for several years and have never appeared outside. The informant believes that you are conducting prohibited live broadcasts. Fart. Chen Yu's anger surged as he said, I only rented this apartment this year. Where did it come from for several years? What other erotic live streams are there? Am I a man who is very sexy relying on my buttocks to attract viewers? Please remain calm and cooperate with your work. The male police officer looked at Chen Yu expressionless, without blinking. Answer the question. Why don't you go out? Dot. Chen Yu remained silent. The male police officer closed the folder and pointed to Chen Yu's hat, take it off. Let me see your address. Chen Yu slowly raised the corner of his mouth and said, I knew the big one was coming. Pop. The male police officer shook his hand and took out his electric baton, saying, take off your hat and cooperate with our work. Chen Yu. I said I'm coming big. The male police officer frowned and said, what? Chen Yu gestured and tried to describe, I mean, big. I'm big and I'm coming. Can I go to the bathroom first? The female police officer's forehead veins twitched and she said, do you think you're very humorous when you say such nonsense? Mr. Chen Yu, don't procrastinate unnecessarily. The male police officer showed his electric baton, first warning. If you don't cooperate, after 3 warnings, we will take compulsory measures. I didn't say I didn't cooperate, Chen Yu felt even more headache-stricken. It's just. I mean. Is there a possibility for us to not take off our hats? I'll just say the title on my head, and you'll believe it. It's easy for everyone. Then you can do whatever you need to do. Male police officer. What did you say? Chen Yu. I think you definitely don't agree. Second warning. The male police officer pulled out handcuffs from his waist. Chen Yu. Dot. Male police officer. Third. Schwa. Chen Yu decisively, rationally, quickly, and without struggling, took off his hat. Exposed the 2 big characters above his head. Corpse. Male police officer. Dot. Female police officer. Dot. Chen Yu. Do you die of being astringent? End of this chapter. Chapter 2. He's going to die. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The source has no content or has errors. Chapter 3, Treat Me Like a Fart. Above. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3, Treat Me Like a Fart. Above, is it called Chen Yu, young man? In the summer interrogation room, the middle-aged police officer took the documents from the young male police officer's hand and briefly flipped through them, asking, since it is confirmed that you have a pre-sexual title, then next, we need to study how you died. Chen Yu said. I don't think I can die. I know my own situation, and it's not a preconception at all. If you rule out the possibility of pre-sexual addressing, then you can suspect that you are a villain. The middle-aged police officer closed the document and squinted his eyes slightly. The addressing does not match his true identity, only the villain can do it. He needs to be sent to the Human Security Bureau for investigation. If that's the case, I think Mr. Director, your analysis is quite reasonable. Chen Yu changed his mind in an instant. Miss Wang, please contact an authoritative comprehensive hospital for a complete set of physical examinations and psychological diagnoses. The middle-aged police officer handed the documents to the assistant director and said, the expenses will be covered. Okay, the middle-aged woman took the document and nodded before leaving. The male police officer beside him asked, Director, do you think he died due to illness or suicide? I don't think so, he looks quite healthy. The middle-aged police officer shook his head and said, if he committed suicide due to a mental illness, he would have died at home for so long. I suspect he may have died due to murder. But to be more rigorous, all necessary physical examinations should be done in advance. All possibilities are ruled out. Chen Yu couldn't help roast. I'm a dead man in your eyes now, right? Also, the middle-aged police officer instructed, check the deceased's social relationships before his death. Chen Yu. Good guy. He has a close connection with the delivery man. The male police officer looked at Chen Yu and asked, who had a conflict with you before you passed away? Chen Yu. Mainly you two. Okay, that's it. One of you takes Chen Yu to the hospital, and the other goes to investigate the delivery man. The middle-aged police officer ordered, I'll go and inform them. Pre-sexual titles are really rare, and this is also a big case that concerns human life. Yes, two young police officers, a man and a woman, stood at attention. What else do you have to say? The middle-aged police officer said to Chen Yu. Are you referring to the last words? Chen Yu asked. All right, the middle-aged police officer waved his hand. Get him a pen and paper. Have you heard a sentence, girl? Call life and death destined, wealth and honor in heaven. Respect others' fate and give up the complex of helping others. Although I have a corpse on my head, that's good, at least I'm still alive and well for now, right? So no matter what happens to me in the future, at least for now, let me go back quickly. Imprisonment. This is illegal detention. Don't touch me. Ouch. In the second civilian hospital of Qingqing City, Chen Yu sat on a chair and was inserted into his throat by a doctor with a tube. Go deep into the stomach. Get a gastroscopy, why talk so much? The policewoman stood aside and rolled her eyes. Nausea. After a while, the doctor pulled out the gastric tube and Chen Yu bent down in pain, retching and saying, dogs. A few dogs. Cough. Doctor, is there a problem? The policewoman turned to ask the doctor. Except for a mild Helicobacter pylori infection detected during blowing, there's no problem with anything else. The doctor took off his medical gloves and said, the film will come out this afternoon. Okay, thank you. The policewoman nodded and flipped through the folder to take a look, then pulled up Chen Yu. The next project is colonoscopy. Let's go. You should step on the horse and kill me. Chen Yu straightened up and swallowed 2 mouthfuls of saliva, feeling weak. You should form a group to kill me in the summer. We're also doing it for your own good, why are you like this? The policewoman frowned and said discontentedly, I don't know if you're going to die. I'm so. I can see that the cause of my death in the future should have been caused by your torment. Chen Yu couldn't help but feel very uncomfortable. Don't talk nonsense, hurry up. Pulling Chen Yu, the two of them pushed the door and walked towards the proctology department on the 4th floor. Grandma, it's been a day now and I've done over a dozen tests. Can you give me a break for now? No, the female police officer refused. Believe it or not, I committed suicide. Chen Yu gritted his teeth. The policewoman smiled and said, then we can close the case. Chen Yu. Where is it? Where is the patient? Up there. I saw the dean, there. At this moment, a shout came from behind the two of them. Chen Yu turned around and saw a middle-aged doctor wearing a white coat, carrying a group of white coats, running towards him in a lively manner. Looking at the other person's running legs and excited expression, if they were wearing slippers, they would definitely have been thrown away long ago. Chen Yu. Hello Chen Yu. The middle-aged doctor first glanced at the words, corpse, on Chen Yu's head and became even more excited. He quickly covered Chen Yu's hands and shook them vigorously, saying, "Welcome to the second hospital." Chen Yu looked up. A middle-aged doctor bears dozens of big characters on his head, including a doctoral supervisor from a medical university, an authoritative expert, a civilized academician, and the vice president of Qingqing's second civilian hospital. The title, long, almost covered the heads of the left and right assistants. Are you stacking buffs? Chen Yu couldn't help but say. Ah. What? After a brief moment of confusion, the middle-aged doctor reacted and enthusiastically hugged Chen Yu's shoulder. Comrade Chen Yu, hello, I am the director of the second hospital. Do you want to use me for an experiment? Chen Yu interrupted the other person directly. Slice, dissect, study. Lie down. Chen Yu turned his head to look at the female police officer and was shocked. I finally know how I died. Wait a moment. Not so serious. The middle-aged doctor quickly explained after being poked at the abacus, it's just that pre-sexual titles are too rare and have great scientific research value. Look. You're trying to unravel me. Chen Yu grabbed the policewoman's arm and exclaimed, take me away. He's the murderer. Chen Yu knew that his situation was not a so-called preemptive title at all. The title on top of my head is completely fake, it changes every month and is useless. If the other party, who is a doctoral supervisor, authoritative expert, and national academician from a medical university, really finds out that he is not a preconceived title, and then for their own research interests, they directly label him as a villain and treat him as an experimental mouse to dissect, Mr. Dean, Chen Yu is currently on our public security protection list and you are not allowed to contact him. The female police officer was very responsible and immediately stood in front of Chen Yu. I didn't mean anything. The middle-aged doctor waved his hand repeatedly, I just hope that Chen Yu can cooperate in his leisure time. Can I interject? Chen Yu asked the policewoman. Female police officer. Didn't you already plug it in? Okay, then I won't cooperate, Chen Yu replied. Chen Yu, come on, this is my business card. The middle-aged doctor stepped forward and took out the card, bypassing the female police officer and handing it to Chen Yu. Of course I won't let you help in vain. There's a reward. Upon hearing these words, Chen Yu, who had just prepared to firmly refuse, instinctively took the business card. Female police officer. Chen Yu. I just want to take a look. Rolling her eyes again, the female police officer nodded at the dean and said, there's nothing else, I'll do other checks with the protector first. Good. As the two female police officers left, the middle-aged doctor finally realized and replied perfunctorily, staring blankly at Chen Yu's back. Just like watching his long-lost lover, end of this chapter. Chapter 4, Treat Me Like a Fart. Below. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. The source has no content or has errors. Chapter 5. Getting Famous. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. The source has no content or has errors. Chapter 6. The Merit of Men. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Chapter 6 The Merit of Men, Then you're quite impressive. Instantly losing the desire to talk to the other person, Chen Yu turned his head to look at the TV and waited for the replay of the local news program. But the short criminal continued on and on. It's also a crime. Rape is the least favored crime in prison, and you must get beaten up, right? Young man. Chen Yu. Yes, yes. Do you regret it? The short criminal scolded his companion, do you dare to do it again in the future? I dare not, the companion criminal shuddered. Do you know you're scared now? What about being so arrogant back then? The short criminal was proud and looked at the old police officer on duty. Big brother, are rapists at the bottom of the line in prison? The on-duty police officer had no expression on his face and took a sip of tea, saying, they are all criminals, so what are they classified into? Whether or not they will be bullied inside has little to do with your crimes. Old comrade, you still haven't had any experience, the short criminal smacked his lips. At first glance, you haven't squatted. Old police officer. Seeing that no one was paying attention to him, the short man continued to talk in plain language for a while before closing up. Chen Yu can also watch TV quietly for a while now. About half an hour later, the broadcast of the noon program began. He smoothly saw himself on the screen. At this glance, one's heart trembles with fear. The director of the local TV station surprisingly filmed the material about him as approaching science. Why is the young man in the flower season involved in a homicide case? Is it impossible to change the tragic death in the future? Is all of this fate's arrangement? Is it the decline of human nature? Or is it self-directed and self-acted? Duong. Close-up shot by Chen Yu, accompanied by the sound of drums, in black and white. The word corpse is simple but like an indestructible curse, making it difficult for the young man to break free. It leaves the police at a loss. Can experienced and responsible police officers save this innocent and vibrant life from the hands of the Grim Reaper? Everything, all in the Qingqing TV Noon News special program. Fated death. Chen Yu. Chen Yu. I'll take your damn thing. Sleeping in the trough. A short criminal squatting on the side was surprised and pointed at the TV. Do the people inside look like you? Chen Yu. After a moment of silence, Chen Yu fell into contemplation and furrowed his brow. Even a fool who has never met can recognize him. How did his mother ignore this point in the blink of an eye? A night has passed. The next morning, the highly acclaimed chief psychiatrist arrived at the Public Security Bureau early to receive treatment for Chen Yu's mental illness. In the interrogation room, Chen Yu yawned and his eyes were drowsy. Sitting opposite the psychologist, no one spoke. But as time passed by minute by second, Chen Yu, who lacked composure, gradually became clear-headed and restless. He had originally planned to lie flat and let the police do whatever they wanted. After a few days, if the title on your head changes, hurry up and leave. Saving time leads to change. But the psychologist's expression of caring for the psychotic patient made him very upset and couldn't help but say, "You said I had mania, do you have any his mother evidence?" The psychologist scratched his chin and said, "When it comes to evidence, it wasn't there before, but now it is." Chen Yu. After a moment of silence, Chen Yunai calmed down and explained to the other party how he was locked up in the police station, how he was stuck in a hospital for a day, how he was reported as entertainment by the TV station, and how his emotions could not remain calm, and the psychologist kept nodding, expressing agreement and understanding. The pen in hand keeps writing and drawing. About 20 minutes later, Chen Yu's mouth was dry and his tongue was dry. He said he was tired and finished speaking. He glanced at the content of the other person's notes with his head. He found that the diagnosis given by the psychiatrist was still manic and serious irritability, and instantly exploded. "You his mother. Calm down, Mr. Chen." The psychologist suddenly stood up and seriously took out the pocket watch from his pocket. The pocket watch is silver white all over, with golden chains hanging on it, very exquisite and beautiful. "Are you going to hypnotize me?" Chen Yu suddenly felt a chill in his spirit. "No." The psychologist opened the pocket watch and glanced at the time. "I'm going backwards. Do you want an extra clock?" Chen Yu. "Get lost." The psychologist nodded and said, "Okay." Watching the other person leave, Chen Yu sat on the regret chair, sighed deeply, and rubbed his face. He figured it out. For him, whether he is manic or not is not important. But for that psychologist, having manic disorder is important. Because of this, the other party can earn money day after day to divide the heat. So according to this rule, Fenshu and TV station should also think the same way, they just have different goals from each other. No, that's not right. If I say that. Chen Yuming looked up and suddenly a sense of crisis surged in his heart. Squeak. The door of the interrogation room was pushed open. The female police officer poked out half of her head and observed Chen Yu a few times before saying, "Well, the hospital contacted us this morning and said that during a consultation with the hospital doctors, they found some problems in your physical examination report. They suspect that you may have a relatively rare disease." Chen Yu retorted, "That means I still have to undergo a full day of re-examination, right?" Yes, besides that, there are also 2 small minimally invasive surgeries, the policewoman said cautiously. Painless, soon, the leaders of the general administration have agreed. Do I agree? I can do it alone if you do it, his mother. Chen Yu was so frightened and angry that he clapped the table and shouted, "Let me out. I want to go home." Are you still going home? That afternoon, in the operating room of the 2nd Civilian Hospital. The dean with the title of Doctoral Supervisor of Medical University, Authoritative Expert, National Academician, Vice President of Qingqing 2nd Civilian Hospital, above his head, holding a syringe filled with tranquilizers, spoke gently to Chen Yu. "I won't go back." Chen Yu smiled and lay quietly on the operating table. "You put down the anesthetic first." "Okay." The dean put down his sedative and explained to Chen Yu calmly, "Classmate, don't be too nervous. For the sake of your health, we just took some tissue for pathological examination. We need to rule out any possibility of your illness." "Okay, whatever you say, I believe it." Chen Yu restrained his smile and said, "Anyway, I need to be clear-headed and watch your surgery. Don't try any tricks." "Sure." The dean suppressed his joy and, with the help of his assistant, checked his surgical uniform and sterile gloves. "Young man, have you heard a sentence? Scars are the most important credit for men. Where do you want to leave this credit? Is the foreskin okay?" Chen Yu asked. "Dean." Doctor from the entire operating room. Dean. "Okay." Chen Yu. "Leave deeper scars." Dean. "No problem." End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Title change. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7 Title change. With the completion of the hospital's physical examination and surgery, Chen Yu returned to the Red Soil Pit police station under the protection of 3 police officers. Continue his life of imprisonment. In the next few days, Chen Yu never took another step towards excessive summer heat. And after the office provided him with a computer, he didn't even leave the dormitory. My home is also a mansion. The house is also a mansion. There are also dedicated personnel to deliver meals on time, and on time if it weren't for the restlessness that kept echoing in his heart, and the bastard psychologist who harassed him every morning, Chen Yu would really think these days were not bad. It is worth mentioning that the wound beneath him has completely healed in just 3 days. Because the hospital may have made a conscientious discovery and even invited a psychic to treat him. Chen Yu still remembers the scene from that time to this day. That guy. That's like the sound of gongs and drums, the sound of firecrackers, the display of red flags, and the sea of people. Even the leaders and cadres on the street were startled by the low-level E-level superpower. One by one, with a smile on their faces, they respectfully welcomed the psychic into the postoperative lounge where Chen Yu was located. These street leaders dare not underestimate Chen Yu. I thought Chen Yu was some kind of super big shot who had contracted some kind of super serious illness and even invited an extraordinary person to assist in treatment. It was finally discovered that it was for the treatment of circumcision at that time. The E.level superpower had a dark face. But fortunately, with basic professional ethics, I took all the money from the hospital, and with a face full of unhappiness, I released something to Chen Yu that I didn't know was therapeutic, holy light, or some kind of cell proliferation technique. In just a few minutes, Chen Yu felt like he should be able to read Zia Huangwen. Whether it was the memories before the journey or the life after the journey, this was Chen Yu's first encounter with extraordinary power. Then an indescribable and irresistible thirst swept through the body. If he could also possess this power, don't mention your impoverished family, don't talk about your future life, just talking about this heat, I dare not lock him up. So, without hesitation, Chen Yu took out his phone and said, "Add a beautiful woman on WeChat." Returning to the shock of the entire audience. And the gaze of the superpower was so cold that it could no longer be suspicious, so suspicious that it could no longer be indifferent. They have no disdain at all. They just wonder why Jill, who looks quite long, lacks self-awareness even compared to dogs. It looks amazing to you. In the summer dormitory, Chen Yu, who was sitting in front of the computer playing games, recalled that scene and then recalled it again. Angry and indignant. Who hasn't been a superpower in their dreams yet? Therefore, he decisively exited the game, controlled the mouse to open the search engine, and entered what is a single-player game to play as a superpower. Pop. Then the computer went off. It seems that he is telling him, "You must die of your heart, stinking loser." Is there a power outage? Chen Yu sat in front of the computer desk, looking at the pitch-black screen, confused. After pressing the power switch, the host still hasn't responded. But then, he no longer cared about computer issues. Because he noticed that the title of "Corpse" on his head had faded. Chen Yu. Good thing. Great deal. Director, good news. Director, good news. Exciting screams and screams from subordinates came from outside the bathroom door. The middle-aged police officer crouching on the toilet, with the title of Deputy Director of Heat Separation above his head, instantly became in a bad mood. He has been in the police for over 30 years. His father has been in the police for over 50 years. He and his father add up to be around 100 years old. He dares to say that even if his father is here, he has never heard such ruthless flattery. Is the shit that the director pulled really good shit? If you feel good, come in and take a bite, the middle-aged police officer said in disgust. The subordinate outside the door was blindfolded and said, "What are you saying?" Dong. The wooden door of the toilet compartment was pushed open, and the middle-aged police officer remained calm as he tied his belt and scolded him. Before the scolding could be heard, the subordinate police officer took the lead and exclaimed, "Director. This is a great thing. Chen Yu has changed. Has the title changed?" The middle-aged police officer's spirit trembled and his reaction was extremely fast. Yeah. What did it become? It hasn't changed yet, it's just that the title color has become lighter. Let's go. The middle-aged police officer didn't have time to lock the buckle on his belt, so he ran out of the bathroom and rushed towards the dormitory where Chen Yu was located. The lighter color of the title text indicates that the person's title is about to change. This is common sense, and everyone has experienced it. Soon. He rushed all the way to Chen Yu's dormitory at lightning speed. At this point, there were already 4 or 5 people in the cabin. The middle-aged police officer pushed them aside and saw Chen Yu with a smile and a Buddha statue on his face at a glance. The word "corpse" on its head has indeed faded. When did it happen? The middle-aged police officer asked urgently. It changed last night, Chen Yu said calmly, but it's too late. I'm afraid it might affect your rest, so I didn't say anything. Hey, it's not something important. What are you excited about? When the psychologist approached you this morning, you haven't changed yet, the female police officer immediately revealed. Oh. That should be what happens afterwards. It doesn't matter, I don't care too much either. Chen Yu remained calm and asked the middle-aged police officer, am I out of prison this time? To be honest, I still can't bear to part with you. I really want to continue living for a while. You really need to stay for a while, the middle-aged police officer immediately took out his phone and dialed the superior's number. Chen Yu. Ah. This is another great, down-to-earth, genuine, and mission-worthy victory for our public security team. We have safeguarded people's property and protected their lives. History tells us to do things steadily and keep the people in our hearts. The safety of is our consistent and persistent responsibility. I can do it well, and I will definitely do it well. Pop 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 pop. The grand venue was filled with thunderous applause from time to time. The deputy director of the general administration stood in the main position, excitedly chatting. Chen Yu sat slumped on the side, drowsy. I can't sleep yet. The director general's shouting was too loud. An hour ago, upon learning of the news that his title was about to change, Deputy Chief Summer indeed notified Chief Summer. The Summer Chief notified the headquarters. The general administration notified the television station. Then he was taken to the hall of this hall and a grand celebration began. Preemptive titles plus substantial, saving a life, with gimmicks. And it is indeed worth a special book, inspiring. Chen Yu also had a rare special cooperation. After all, we'll be leaving soon, there's hope we can go back and beat up our neighbors. How about enduring it for a while longer? Finally. Another half hour has passed, and the leader has finished speaking. Click. The director, wearing a green duckbill cap, stopped the live filming and stood up to shout to Chen Yu, young man, it's your turn to speak next. Don't be nervous, just express your gratitude. Speak up. Me. Yes. Can you cry? Interrupted a leader on the podium. Chen Yu. Ah, it's okay if you can't cry. The leader awkwardly waved his hand and said, just show your true feelings. Alright, if there's no problem, then we'll start. The on-site commander waved his hand vigorously. A machine's far view, take the person on the left seat, and slowly row to the director's place. B machine's close. Up, there's a pull action. Everyone on site is looking at Chen Yu. Understood. Okay. 3, 2, 1, let's go. Chen Yu. Hundreds of people in the room looked at Chen Yu in unison. He was restless, always wanting to blurt out a mouthful of old jokes. I'll be leaving soon. It's all over now. Taking a few deep breaths and emphasizing his current situation psychologically, Chen Yu stiffened his face, smiled, and spoke, respected leaders, guests, viewers in front of the TV, this afternoon. Are you hosting the party? The director leaned out half of his head. You don't need to be so formal. Just say what you want to say now. Don't move the A and B machines, continue filming. I just want to say, you're such a terrible person, now. Chen Yu rubbed his face and smiled again, respected leaders, as well as the police comrades who have been protecting me during this period, I am truly grateful for your help. It has allowed me to reform and become a new person. Alright, the director waved his hand and said, leave the first half behind and do the voiceover for the back. Don't forget to come to the stage tomorrow to do the voiceover. Chen Yu. How come I can't understand this? The deputy head of the summer sitting below had a black line on his face. Just get a journalist to cover the news. Is this going to be a documentary? No one paid attention to the deputy director's roast. The on-site director leaned in front of the monitor and watched the replay. After confirming that there were no issues, he stood up and arranged, in the last scene, take a picture of Chen Yu walking out. It would be best to wait for him to leave the door, and that a title on his head would change. This expresses his intention of being reborn with the help of the police. Okay. The deputy director of the general administration was very satisfied and applauded. Then let's take a break and wait for the color of the title on Chen Yu's head to become lighter. Chen Yu. The scene relaxed, and the police officers below and the leaders on the podium began chatting. The hall was filled with noise. Only Chen Yu sat alone in his original position, his face numb. Fortunately, it's time for the title above to change. After only waiting for more than 10 minutes, the color of Chen Yu's address faded to almost indistinguishable with the naked eye. Okay, it's now. The director gave a command and everyone returned to their seats. Started. Chen Yu held back the excitement that surged in his heart and tentatively pointed to the tip of his nose. Am I leaving now? Yes. Let's go. The director nodded. The deputy head of summer in the audience reminded, Chen Yu, you don't need to come back after leaving. You can go home now, thank you for your hard work. Okay. Chen Yu stood up immediately and walked quickly towards the gate. Slow down, the director stared intently at the monitor. Oh yes, slow down. You can shout now, bring Machine B to the podium. At the next moment, all the police officers in the room stood up and shouted, protect the safety of the people. Serve the people. Okay. Great. Don't be nervous, young man. Keep walking, hey, go. Hey. At the moment when Chen Yu was about to leave the hall gate, the title on his head changed on time. From a zombie to the world's #1 serial killer of dismembered corpses. Deputy Head of Summer. General Administration Leader. Director. Everyone in the room said. Oh ho, end of this chapter. Chapter 8, but it doesn't seem very good. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8, but it doesn't seem very good. The sudden suppression behind him caught Chen Yu's attention. He instinctively turned around and saw the expressions of the police and journalists in the hall. He instinctively felt uneasy and ran away, saying, thank you. Thank you everyone, I'm leaving. Stop. Don't leave. Don't run. Don't move. You're already surrounded. The police in the hall erupted in an instant, like a wolf-like tiger, like a landslide, like a tsunami. Perfectly demonstrating the physical fitness required for a profession, he rushed forward and directly threw Chen Yu to the ground. Chen Yu. Sleeping trough. Before he could swear, Chen Yu was shot out of the police. Full alert. Have you controlled the suspect? Make way a little. I have a gun, you guys should dodge some and let me control it. Don't suppress it. The suspect is almost exhausted. Chen Yu lay on the ground, covered in a big man, groaning in pain. Don't. Don't move. A strong and prone police officer struggled to pull out handcuffs and tried to handcuff Chen Yu. Be honest. Chen Yu. I can't breathe anymore. Police officer. Me too. The same. Cough. Get out of the way. Everyone get out of the way. Vice President Xu rushed over with a big belly, pushed away the pile of flesh, and quickly took the handcuffs of a police officer to control Chen Yu. Promoted to civil service for many years, his skill in handcuffing is still in its prime. Pain. Chen Yu was pulled up by the deputy director of the general administration and shook in place, his mind dizzy. Did I blow up the Milky Way? Everyone calm down. Chen Yu is referred to as preemptive. Deputy Chief of the Red Soil Pit also chased out and suppressed the pistol raised by a certain police officer. He hasn't committed a crime yet. What has become the title of On top of my head. Chen Yu naturally understood what was going on, panting heavily and asking hoarsely. Let's see for ourselves. Fu Shuchang's face darkened, he took out his phone, turned on the self-fear mode, and displayed Chen Yu on the phone screen. The world's #1 serial killer of zombies and dismembered bodies, Chen Yu. Chen Yu. I'll take your damn thing. Half an hour later. I'll just say he's mentally ill. Outside the red soil pit summer interrogation room, through a small glass window, the deputy director looked at Chen Yu, who was at a loss on the interrogation chair, and said expressionlessly, "This is not just irritability. I sweat profusely in the summer and dare not speak." In the interrogation room. The middle-aged police officer, who was the deputy head of the summer heat, had a face full of bruises and redness. He suppressed his anger and asked Chen Yu, "Chen Yu, have you been resentful of your detention in the summer these days?" "I didn't," Chen Yu was about to cry. Pop. The middle-aged police officer slammed the table fiercely and said, "Fart. Have we treated you well these days, so you don't have any fear of the law? A serial killer. It's still world-class. How dare you? You can handle it. Chen Yu. On the side, the elderly police officer wearing a police cap and covering his title remained calm and spoke gently, "Chen Yu, can you tell me why you committed those insane crimes?" Chen Yu scratched his head and said, "I really didn't implement it." Senior police officer. Why do you want to implement it? Chen Yu. In the interrogation room, there was a 2-minute silence. The elderly police officer flipped through a document on the desk, flipped through 2 pages, and continued, "Young man, I know some of your family situation. Your father has been bedridden in recent years due to a construction accident, and your mother's health is also not good. She relies on your sister's work, overtime, and part-time jobs to earn money and save up her operating expenses. As for you, you also do drawing and reporting work online, and once you earn money, you send it back to your home." Chen Yu has a headache and doesn't know what to say. The elderly police officer closed the document and smiled, saying, "It can be seen from this that you are a good child. Your essence is really not bad. It may just be a moment of extremism, with some irrational and immoral ideas. But there are some things that a person cannot do no matter what. I apologize for helping your society, for your aging and simple parents, and for those victims who work hard and have loved ones to care about. I'm even more sorry for your kind nature." Stop talking, I have some understanding now. Chen Yu decided to take a step back and make progress. "Let me go home and stay calm for a month. When I come out again, I will definitely be a good citizen. Do you still want to go back?" The middle-aged police officer gritted his teeth and said, "The title on your head doesn't fade. You can stay in prison." Prison. Chen Yu was shocked. "Are you going to imprison me? What should we do if we don't lock you up and go out to harm the people?" The middle-aged police officer stood up and said, "The dormitory for the summer break is too comfortable. It seems that you don't like it. The authorities have decided to change your place." Bang. Chen Yu also patted the table. "I didn't commit any crimes. It's illegal for you to lock me up." "Young man, you haven't committed any crimes," the elderly police officer pointed to the title above Chen Yu's head. "But your title indicates that you have criminal ideas and the ability to put them into practice. Therefore, the Bureau must have appropriate control over you. This is responsible to society, as well as to you. Because a criminal not only harms the victim, but also harms themselves." Chen Yu. "Actually, my situation is still quite good in the summer." Before Chen Yu could finish speaking, 2 police officers, one senior, left the interrogation room. Dong. Only the angry sound of middle-aged police officers slamming doors remained. Chen Yu. Chen Yu. Sin. His mother. He hates the title on his head. Not right. He hates the neighbor who reported him so much outside the interrogation room. 4 police officers meet. The old police officer took the lead in saying, I observe that this young man is quite responsible. What have you done in your office? Let the child be so angry. They're going to become the world's #1 criminal. What can we do? The middle-aged police officer was aggrieved. He's been well fed and nurtured in a clinic, and he even talks to a psychologist every day. Old police officer. Growing such a big problem. The middle-aged police officer choked. Old leader, what should we do now? The pot-bellied deputy director of the general administration respectfully asked. Contact the above to issue an authorization. First find a prison for him to be temporarily locked up. The elderly police officer scratched his chin and said, but he hasn't committed a crime yet, it's a premeditated title, so you need to connect with several departments, pretend, and let him feel the atmosphere in prison. Then find a professional psychologist to guide him and correct his behavior as soon as possible. The world's #1 serial killer, Tisk, this is really amazing. This process is unreasonable, isn't it? The deputy general manager hesitated. Can you explain the situation to me above? The old police officer picked up his hands and walked with his hands on his back. In special circumstances, there should be a special procedure that can be followed. At the same time. Jiangshan Shijia apartment building, 12 floors. A certain otaku living next to Chen Yu's rented house suddenly felt a chill engulfing his whole body for some unknown reason. He trembled instantly, took off his earphone, gave up computer games, and looked around in confusion. Why do you have a bad feeling? Strange. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. I Really Killed Some People, Part 1. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. I Really Killed Some People, Part 1, Go in, Don't Procrastinate. Qingqing City, Suburban, Qingqing Prison. Chen Yu, with a reluctant expression on his face, was led by a middle-aged police officer and walked into the warden's office. Brother Zhang, I brought Chen Yu here. As soon as he entered the door, the middle-aged police officer released Chen Yu and warmly shook hands with the warden. I'll trouble you guys later. No trouble, no trouble. The strong man with the title of prison chief of Qingqing Prison waved his hand and said, the documents have already come down from above. Wang Suo can rest assured about the next thing. There are still quite a few things to do in the office, so I'll go get busy first. The middle-aged police officer pointed back at Chen Yu and reminded, this kid is very picky. What kind of thief can't be found in prison? The warden smiled and said, it won't take a month, and we'll definitely be able to reform it. Let me emphasize again, this is illegal. Chen Yu said calmly, I want to sue you. The middle-aged police officer clasped his hands together and said, anyway, thank you. Prison warden. No, no, no. Middle-aged police officer. Thank you. Prison warden. You're welcome. Chen Yu. Illegal and illegal. Middle-aged police officer. Let's go, let's go. Prison warden. Walk slowly. Chen Yu. Illegal. Illegal. Middle-aged police officer. Goodbye, goodbye. Prison warden. Walk slowly. Chen Yu. Dong. When the middle-aged police officer closed the door and left, there were only Chen Yu and the warden left in the spacious warden's office. One big and one small, the two looked at each other and remained silent for a moment. Chen Yu struggled. Illegal. The warden remained expressionless and said, don't leave any ink stains. Stepping forward, reaching out to take off Chen Yu's hat, the prison warden couldn't help but grit his teeth and say, you're amazing. Chen Yu. He circled around Chen Yu and exclaimed in amazement, you're so young, this big deal. I really can't tell. By the way, are you naturally abnormal, or are you formed after birth? This is a pre-sexual title. I haven't broken the law yet, Chen Yu retorted weakly. I know. The warden nodded and said, if it weren't for some preconceived title, you would have been executed 1432 times now. Chen Yu. Let me out. Prisoner. You're dreaming. Curiosity was satisfied, and the warden put his hat back on Chen Yu's head. He took 2 steps back and sat down on his desk, picking up the phone and saying, hello. 2 prison guards, come and pick someone up from me. Hanging up the phone, the warden pointed to the sofa next to him and said, sit down first. Chen Yu didn't hesitate and sat straight up. Once you come, be content with it. The title on his head is serial killer. What can he do? He just wants to exert all his strength now, and as soon as he is completely free, he will take down the neighbor who reported him. I can't teach the government a lesson. Why can't I teach you a lesson? It has been natural for the weak to draw their swords at the weaker, since ancient times and not for a while. 2 prison guards dressed in police uniforms arrived. Take this young man to the West Ward, the warden instructed. Yes. The 2 of them approached, one on the left and one on the right, picking up Chen Yu and about to leave. Wait a moment, the warden stopped one of the guards. Just let him go, you come over. The 2 prison guards looked at each other, the one on the left nodded and continued to walk with Chen Yu. The remaining prison guard walked up to the warden and respectfully said, Leader, what instructions do you have? That young man's name is Chen Yu, not a criminal. When he goes to bed at night, find him a separate room to eat our meal. Everyone should also keep an eye on him and not let him be bullied by those criminals. That's it. The prison guard suddenly said, no wonder they're picking up people in your office. Just someone who is about to commit a crime and hasn't committed it yet. The warden picked up the teacup from the table and took a light sip. Scare him, early labor reform. I understand. Bang. The iron door of the prison room was opened, and the prison guard who was guarding Chen Yu gently pushed him in. Go in. If you don't understand, the question mark leader. As Chen Yu came out of the prison warden's office, the prison guards had a more polite attitude. If it were another prisoner, he would just kick in. Dong. With the sound of the iron door being tightly closed and locked again, the prison guard left. Chen Yu, who helped his head and put on his hat, was wearing a brand new prison uniform. He swallowed his saliva and carefully looked at the people inside the prison room. More than 20 people. Lying horizontally and vertically on the wooden large paving. There are various postures such as cross-legged, sit-ups, and cross-legged. But what is unified is their cold gaze towards Chen Yu. Blink without blinking. Hello everyone. Chen Yu struggled to raise his hand and said hello. I'm quite young, buddy. A short and slightly pointed criminal yawned. Why did you come in? It's not because of anything. The criminal of the sharp-mouthed monkey race glanced up and down at Chen Yu, pointed to the corner of the wall, and said, you can sleep there from now on. Sleep. Sleep in front of the restroom. Chen Yu felt a bit toothache. Where's Moji Nima? A strong man with a tattoo on his arm shouted loudly, don't leave this pestle, a few of them are eye-catching. Chen Yu was startled and quickly ran to the seat next to the toilet, sitting down. The criminal who was originally lying in the toilet position was quite happy and moved outward. In the supervisory room, returned to calm. What a sin. Chen Yu has a heart that wants to die. Faint and inexplicably became a prisoner of labor reform. It's the day. Hi, buddy. About 5 minutes later, the criminal who had changed positions with Chen Yu approached and whispered in Chen Yu's ear, you just offended someone, you know. Who did you offend? Chen Yu was interrupted in a daze and asked in surprise. Shoo, be quiet. The criminal pointed to the sharp-mouthed criminal and said, you offended him. I asked you how you came in, and you just answered. Don't be so dishonest. Ah. This way, Chen Yu reacted. The number will be released soon. You can buy something to apologize. Otherwise, you'll get beaten up. The criminal lowered his voice again and said, let me introduce you to the big brother in our number. Did you see the one next to the door? First, the number is long, second, and fourth. Don't provoke them. What does it all mean? Chen Yu was confused. Don't grumble, you too. The bald criminal lying closest to the door opened his eyes, sat up, and hooked his finger at Chen Yu. Come here. It's the one with the same number. Hurry up. The criminal next to Chen Yu hurriedly urged. Chen Yu stood up and hesitantly walked up to the number manager, saying, hello, number manager. Well, quite sensible. The bald man extended one leg and a criminal immediately rushed over, massaging his thigh. How did you get in? We can't be dishonest. Thinking of the person warning him, Chen Yu decisively and honestly replied, killed some people and got locked up. How about lying to your father? The number was stunned for a moment, then said he was angry, suddenly stood up, slapped Chen Yu on the head, and knocked off his hat. His mother can kill people in this number. Before he could finish speaking, the captain fell to the ground with a soft thud. If struck by lightning. On Chen Yu's head, the title of World's #1 Serial Corpse Massacre and Suicide Killer was shining brightly. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. I Really Killed Some People, Part 2. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. I Really Killed Some People, Part 2, Inside the Monitoring Room. At this moment, there was a complete silence, and the sound of needles falling could be heard. All the criminals looked at Chen Yu with a frightened expression on their faces. Also looking at Chen Yu's title as the world's #1 serial killer of dismembered corpses. The boss who slapped Chen Yu turned pale and instinctively moved his body towards the back. A serial killer of dismembered corpses, is it still the world's #1? What is this thing being released into prison? Standing in the same place, Chen Yu watched everyone's timidity and gradually calmed down. He touched his head, bent down, picked up his hat, and put it on again. Originally, I wanted to get along with you as an ordinary criminal. You're forcing me to engage in violence. Chen Yu suddenly kicked on the head of the phone and lifted it up, saying, that's why you call it the head of the phone. No, big brother. The captain quickly got up and crouched down to defend himself. I misunderstood. You hit me again and I'll see. Chen Yu also crouched down and pointed to his head. Come on, hit. I dare not. The number leader smiled pleasantly and clasped his hands together, bowing to Chen Yu again and again. I'm just a fart, big brother. You are the number leader, how dare I hit you? I'm sorry, I'll compensate you. Upon hearing the keyword, money, Chen Yu's anger, which had erupted from prolonged suffocation, eased slightly. He reached out to grab the bald head of the account manager and said, what's going on? I said I killed some people, but don't you believe me? Believe it. The bald-headed account hesitated completely, almost bowing. You came in to kill someone, without wearing ankle shackles. I didn't recognize you. Big brother, you have the ability, don't judge me like a petty person. Do you dare to put ankle shackles on me? Who dares to put them on me? Chen Yu stood up straight, hands akimbo, and looked around the room. The criminals all retreated in fear. They have been squatting in the horn for so long, each one is a human spirit. A serial killer, still at the global level, was able to be placed in this small prison. Not wearing ankle shackles yet. What a towering background does this have to be? So, compared to the title on Chen Yu's head, the hidden, deterrent power in it makes these scumbags even more fearful. By the way, that one looks like a monkey. Come over here. It's quite easy to hide. Why don't you get into the toilet? Chen Yu found someone trembling behind the toilet. It was the criminal who had just come in and bullied him. Big brother, big master. The sharp-tongued criminal stood up and raised his hands high. I was wrong. Don't be the same person as me. I will also compensate you. How did you get in? Chen Yu walked slowly forward and pinched the criminal's sharp chin. I have it on my head. Chen Yu looked at the other parties, swindler, title and frowned. I want to ask you something, his mother. I'm a fraudster. How much do you want to compensate me? Chen Yu stared straight at the criminal's face and licked his lips. 100,000, is it 10,000, big brother? I have been confiscated of my property, and I don't have much family background. It's a deal, now squat on the toilet. Chen Yu chuckled, maintaining anger on the surface, and shouted, don't move. Okay. The sharp-nosed monkey immediately rushed up to the toilet, hugging his head with both hands and squatting on the toilet. How much compensation do you want? Chen Yu looked at the bald captain. 1 million. I'll give you all the money, boss. The bald man gasped heavily. From now on, you'll be my big brother. I'll hang out with you. All my money belongs to you. Chen Yu. The criminal, with his back to Chen Yu and squatting on the toilet, was startled and gave a thumbs up in admiration to the captain. 1 million. Chen Yu's anger dissipated instantly, and he stood in the same place, feeling a bit at a loss. Not to mention in this world. Even in the half of his life before traveling, he has never seen anything like 1 million MMM. Then you sit down. Chen Yu tried to maintain a calm expression and waved his hand. We can also be considered strangers. In the future, I will cover you throughout the entire range of human activities. Big brother, you're amazing. Big brother, you're sitting here. The bald head captain was overjoyed and quickly ran over, respectfully supporting Chen Yu to sit on his own shop. I'm really lucky today. Big brother, I'll definitely be heartbroken and have no regrets in the future. Oh. Chen Yu was surprised and looked up and down at the number director. You also look at the red chamber. This is from the Three Kingdoms. Oh yes, Red Mansion. The captain nodded repeatedly and said, I also looked at the Red Mansion. Nodded, and Chen Yu looked around the room again. What else is there? Along in 2 sticks, 3 and 4 criminal police teams. Are you building a hall entrance? Who is the 2 sticks? Me, it's my big brother. The sharp-nosed monkey cheeks on the toilet were about to cry, I am. Where's your stick? Chen Yu asked. That stick, it means I'm quite hard in the horn. No, it's not a stick. Squat down. Slap yourself in the face. Okay. The sharp-mouthed monkey slapped itself with agility. What about the 3 and 4 criminal police teams? Chen Yu frowned and said, I was caught by the criminal police. How dare you call me that? We are. A long-faced criminal nervously pulled a square-faced criminal out of the crowd. What does the criminal investigation team mean? Chen Yu asked. It's just the meaning of being a thug. It sounds like a long name. The long-faced criminal swallowed his saliva. But we're listening to you now. The criminal with a square face suddenly fell to the ground. Big brother. You'll be my big brother from now on. Me too. The long-faced criminal also realized and fell to the ground. Liver. Willing to be your disciple, no hatred. Me too. The criminal with a square face bowed again. I also look at the red chamber. So it's the 3 kingdoms. Chang Yi threw a mineral water bottle over and said, don't drag it if you have no culture. Chen Yu turned his head and looked at the captain with suspicion. The number chief reacted and quickly gave Chen Yu a thumbs up. Big brother, that's the red chamber. Time. Like a toilet that presses the water pump button, it hurriedly passes by. In the blink of an eye, a week has passed. That morning, the deputy director of the Red Soil Pit Police Station, a middle-aged police officer, arrived at Qingqing prison with 2 police officers, a man and a woman. Conduct a visit to Chen Yu. These days, that little Chen Yu must have suffered a lot, said the policewoman, holding on to her police cap and looking worried. Teach him a lesson. The middle-aged police officer sat on the visiting glass seat, expressionless. I think from primary and secondary school onwards, children should be arranged to visit the prison. Let them experience what punishment a criminal should face. Here comes the director. The male police officer standing on the side looked sharp and pointed forward. The middle-aged police officer and female police officer looked in the direction and indeed saw Chen Yu walking with handcuffs on. He seems to have gained a lot of weight, the policewoman frowned. I gained weight several times. The male police officer corrected, did you get beaten up? Hello, deputy director. Chen Yu sat across from the middle-aged police officer, greeted warmly through the glass, and there's also the little sister, she's getting more and more beautiful. Did you get beaten? The policewoman looked serious and asked first. Chen Yu's identity is not that of a criminal. If he really suffered a vicious situation in prison, then this matter would be wrong. Ah. No, what did I get? Chen Yu waved his hand. Chen Yu. The middle-aged police officer leaned forward and stared at Chen Yu without blinking. How were you doing inside? Do you regret it? You're doing pretty well, Chen Yu let out a deep hiccup. Economic freedom is coming soon. Middle-aged police officer. Chen Yu smacked his lips and said with satisfaction, the old man inside is both generous and talented. I really like this place. The middle-aged police officer remained silent for a moment. Take off your hat. Okay. Chen Yu obediently took off his hat, revealing his title as the world's #1 serial killer of zombies and dismembered bodies. Good guy, the male police officer said with a smack of his tongue, I haven't touched a single word. Stubborn. The title remains the same, you can continue to stay inside. The middle-aged police officer was furious and patted the table, leaving without looking back. Director. The male police officer quickly chased after him. You. What do you think? Why do you still want to go out and retaliate against society? The policewoman looked back at her boss and anxiously said, it's hopeless. If you keep doing this, maybe you'll be sentenced. Is there such a good thing? Chen Yu's eyes lit up. Female police officer. End of this chapter.